just in terms of ramifications, Mark Burrows is back with us now. In terms of those ramifications, Mark, politically, obviously this is going to have rippling effects right across that region in a very big way.
Well, it completely changes what has been simmering for the last few months, Carl, with the Russian separatists still active in that area. But this, as we said before, takes it to a whole new level. And getting America to get Russia to admit what's happened, that it's either supplied these missiles, and then getting the separatists to admit what's happened, that's going to be the difficult thing. I think as we said before, the Russians are experts at ducking and weaving on these things. We saw that in Crimea. They claimed that they didn't have troops in Crimea. In fact, there were thousands of them there. This is what's going to be the difficult thing here now. Russia has got this get-out-of-jail card. It can say it knew nothing about it. But I think when things become clearer here, we didn't get that impression from President Obama. I thought earlier he was very cagey. He didn't have many details. He really didn't commit one way or the other. But of course that's going to change in the coming hours and coming days, and it's going to be so interesting to see what pressure America puts on Russia.
It was in a way, we were all expecting Barack Obama to say something. He's on the campaign trail, I think, over in America, and we were expecting a little bit more detail from him, and really he mentioned it in passing, and that was about it. Which can be the way when an American president is in that campaign mode. However, we're expecting more details out of the White House, as you say, Mark, in the next couple of hours. And look, the difficulty is going to be if they're trying to wade through all of this as well. But again, we go back to that. There is more evidence here. There is going to be a growing arsenal of evidence coming out of this in terms of satellites, in terms of these eyewitness reports.
Well, just on that, we were talking before about how difficult it's going to be for investigators to get into that area, to get the flight recorder from the separatists who've now claimed they have it. I just was seeing there on wires that the separatists have now agreed to a 3-day ceasefire in that area to allow the recovery work to be undertaken. So, well, we take that at face value, and maybe that's an encouraging sign. But there'll be so much work for investigators to do to get in there, and it's going clearly Ukraine, the authorities in Kiev won't be able to do that by themselves. They're going to need international assistance to get in there and do it.
How remote an area is this, Mark, in terms of getting the expertise on the ground? How long will it take?
Oh, it is not too bad. I mean, they can fly to Donetsk, they can fly to Kiev, and I think where they are now is probably about 3 or 4 hour drive, so it's not too bad. It's not too bad, but it's, you can see it's you can see it's in a pretty remote area, but it's accessible.
And also, we know, Mark, in the last hour or so, it looks as though planes that were over that area are no longer there, and that everyone else now is on board. Those other international airlines are now flying around those areas, skirting along the border.
I'm just looking at this map here. That it was the moments after the incident, and Europe is just clouded with all these jets, and just the big space. All right, I'll turn that around so you might be able to see it. But it's got an amazing shot because Ukraine is deserted. All the planes are literally going right
around that area.
Yeah, there you go. Just on
other way.
ABC. Yeah,
there you go. And you might be able to see. So here we are, Ukraine, and planes are literally there, going around, and they're all flooding in here.
And just over an hour ago, Mark, when we looked at that shot, there were probably at least half a dozen planes over that Ukraine area, and flying directly for that border. So
what I've been reading there is that area where the altitude of where that plane wasn't necessarily regarded as okay, but if the plane had gone lower, the lower altitude was regarded as a risk.
Okay.
So not necessarily the altitude it was flying at.
Yeah, 22,000 feet's a long way up. Again, pointing
33.
Again, pointing to the expertise of this weaponry.
That's why, that's why,
right.
as you said, it wouldn't have been launched off the shoulder, but off the back of a truck.
It's a sophisticated weapon.
You mentioned the level of sophistication of the person who potentially launched that, though. We heard from Christine earlier, 2 military planes in recent weeks have been shot down. The fact that this is a passenger jet is perhaps leading people to think that this was failed target, that they've got the wrong plane.
Well, that's the big theory. There's one big theory going around at the moment, Sylvia, is that whoever was in charge of this missile system may have mistaken this passenger jet for a cargo jet, some kind of military cargo jet. And so, yeah.
Yeah, we can get that.
Look, we've already seen on the ground as well, we've already seen a number of disturbing things that personalise this. I mean, in any plane crash, I mean, you've got 295 people on board, you've got 295, obviously there are families involved, 295 families involved in that, and you can't imagine what it's going to be like and the grief for those families this morning. There is some speculation this morning that there are at least a couple of dozen Americans on board, and a number of the others were, as we've said already, going to holidays. So you can imagine, I mean, you don't want to think about it too much, but there'd be families on board. They're all going on on a great trip on a holiday, and then this happens. Just awful.
From a conflict that's felt quite removed for many people around the world for so long now, it really brings it home to people, you know, everywhere across the globe now, doesn't it?
And that's it. That's exactly right. And look, you don't, as a passenger, you get on board these planes, and that's the last thing you think of.
Yeah.
I mean, how many would have even known that's the route they would have taken, and you know, possibly there was ongoing conflict or weaponry that can go that high. The responsibility does come back to the airlines in this case, and there are, as we've said, airlines that have decided weeks ago not to fly over that. But given this circumstance, Malaysia Airlines, look, it's an awful situation for them. But what is any airline doing flying over that area?
Well, these are the questions that are going to have to be asked, and you've got to think about. We're just getting some vision in now of some passports.
It looks like an Australian passport
that were found at the scene.
Oh, my goodness.
That's definitely an Australian passport there. So look, we don't know where this vision has come from, so we need to be careful with this. But that does look like. That's shocking, isn't it? That's terrible. It's terrible for everyone involved. Look, they're Australian, and it's an Australian passport there. We don't know definitively whether an Australian was on board or there are Australians on board. This is just vision that's coming in, and we don't know definitively whether or not that's from the scene. We presume it is, but
it's not a good sign.
It's not a great sign, and look, very sad for all the families involved here. And if there are Australians on board, then they're going to need all the help they can get. Again, we've spoken to the Australian government and Department of Foreign Affairs. We know that they're very busy at the moment trying to establish who was on board, if there are any Australians on board. That photo would seem to indicate that there may have been. But in terms of people gathering information, wanting information, then they're in the process of establishing these DFAT hotlines, which they do in these cases, for you to garner any information that you may through them, through an official capacity, may be the only way that you can. I mean, just trying to get information out of anyone at the moment is difficult, let alone get information out of that territory. As Mark has said all along, it's a conflict zone, it's a war zone. So to get information out of there is going to be hard. But to find out the passenger manifest as well, we're hoping that Malaysia Airlines will release some detail on that in about half an hour's time.
Yeah, we do know 280 passengers and 15 crew were on board, and President Barack Obama spoke earlier saying that 23 Americans, he understands, were on board that aircraft. A number of Europeans, of course. As we said, a plane crash is a sort of tragedy that reaches right around the world because of the different nationalities of people who are on board that, and we have seen that vision of an Australian passport, it appears, that has been collected at the crash site. So we'll bring you more information on that as it comes to
Just
hand.
again on that too, I mean, look, the hard thing is here, when you look at the detail and the damage that's been caused to the plane, how anything could have made it through, let alone a passport. So this is why we do need to be a little bit careful, you know, about drawing any conclusions from that. It just looks that way at this moment. That's all we can tell you. And this is vision that's everywhere around the place. So that's the reason why we don't want to be insensitive in any way. But that's what's coming through to us at this point. There's no way of us verifying either way.